This is Citizen Effect Podcast. This is going to be number 3. I am Keith Whiddon. I am one half of Erase My Arrest, 100% of Whiddon Criminal Defense. We are joined today by the one and only Brian Harkins, a longtime friend of mine and Devin's. Devin, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll go back to Brian, let him give everybody a quick introduction.
I'm Devin Jones. I'm one half of Erase My Arrest and a partner at E. Warren Young. And again, Brian's here with us today. I've known Brian, 10 years now, 12 years. And we're going to talk about what Brian wants to talk about today. Anyways, I'll let Brian introduce himself. He has a pretty storied career about things he's done, but he's been around the legal community for the last 30 years.
Well, thank you. First, thank you for inviting me here. My name is Brian Harkins. I grew up in West Monroe, graduated from West Monroe High School, then went to Northeast Louisiana University and got a degree in marketing. After that, worked for a little while at Lowe's, worked for United Built Homes, until I was talked into entering law school in 1991. I went to Southern University Law Center, graduated in 1994, worked 1 year for a local attorney, and then I realized I needed some courtroom experience. So I went to work at the district attorney's office, where I served for almost 24 years. And I left the district attorney's office in 2019, and then I've been a solo practitioner since, with a practice that has an emphasis on successions, wills, and trust.
I think an interesting point at this is that one day I was sitting in Brian's office. He was a prosecutor, and I would sit at Brian's desk on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And one day we'll get to the story of how I got my prison time on Brian's front desk on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I'm sitting there, and Brian said, I had this surgery one time, and I ended up ordering a ton of books about elder law. And I thought, elder law. He said, I'm going to do elder law. And later on through the years as we talked, I found out that elder law was just this field that basically Brian swimming in a blue ocean over here, and that really the status of what you found the field in. How'd you find it when you came out in 2019?
Well, I always had an interest in this area because, like I said, I spent 24 years as an assistant district attorney. And the district attorney I worked for most of that time is Jerry Jones. And he required his assistants to communicate with the victims and just spend time with them. And with what I learned as an assistant district attorney, you can kind of sort of, any assistant DA becomes over time a kind of sort of an expert in the area of human tragedy. And tragedy's tragedy no matter how it happens. And I'm sorry.
I think no, you're doing fine. I think whenever you walk into this field, I know when you told me, I thought, okay, well, most attorneys just do successions and things like that. But when you started talking about planning for late life events, I couldn't think of one attorney that did it. When you walked out of here in 2019, how many attorneys were in the field of what is elder law? And tell us what it kind of encompasses.
There's a few in town that do this kind of work. It's just deal with issues that affect the elderly. And like, for example, long-term care planning. And like if someone sees down the road that they might have a future need for long-term care, assisting those persons, also assisting persons who are engaged in what's called crisis planning, in that just some tragedy happened and a loved one has to go into a nursing home. And then also doing wills and trusts for people in that type of estate planning, but also do power of attorneys. And, one thing that you said, Devin, when I first started, that what I do is more like life planning than estate planning, because people believe that estate planning is something that you do when you get old, and it's not true at all. It's about life planning and making sure that you and your loved ones are in a good position in the event that tragedy strikes.
And I don't know if Keith knows the story, but when you were leaving the DA's office, I gave you a gift when you left. Remember what it was?
I don't know this story,
Yes.
so now I'm really interested.
Tell them what I gave you.
Gave me a logo.
What I get, and what else? What did you get? A website?
Yes, I did. I got a website.
What website did you get?
Harkins Law Group,
Yep.
LLC.
Yep.
And then I also
The purchase you plan before you die.
Plan before you die.
I thought, well, it's either going to be a hit or the bar is going to send us a letter.
Right.
It's either gonna be-
And we're still waiting on the bar to send you anything, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, so we're free and clear so far.
That's right.
So in case anybody at the State Bar Association is listening.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, I love what I do because, like I said, I spend all that time. Any ADA knows a lot about and that works with the victims, talks with the victims. They know a lot about what these families go through, and let me tell you, tragedy is tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how it comes. A person could be in a nursing home because of the injuries sustained after getting pistol whipped in an armed robbery, versus as a consequence of a massive stroke.
Mm-hmm.
What the loved ones have to deal with is identical. There's no difference. And then likewise, whether someone is killed in a homicide or dies as a result of like a massive coronary event, what the family has to deal with is the same.
It's sudden onset of funeral planning, disposing of assets, or moving of assets. I guess not necessarily disposing, but
yes, it's all about, because estate planning is all about when you putting your affairs in such a way that when you leave this world, that the people you want to take care of will be taken care of. Because if you don't rely on the law to do it, because it won't do it.
mm-hmm.
Like, for example, people believe they don't need a will because I want everything to go to my wife and then to my kids. The truth is, if you die without a will, the Louisiana laws of intestacy will determine what happens with your assets. And a person's spouse inherits nothing, inherits zero. The children will, if it's community property, the children will get that property. If it's separate property, the spouse will have a usufruct over the deceased half of the community property. If it's separate property, she gets nothing.
It wasn't long after you ventured into it. We were eating lunch one day, and I remember you telling me about this world of really what we call asset planning that you do a lot of. That is taking care of assets prior to large events occurring. So if something happens, you have to go into care. You don't have to worry about the loss. I think you told me that it was if you have to get on Medicaid, or is it Medicare? On Medicare. Medicaid. For one of these events, the look back period was 5 years. They would look back 5 years at your assets, what you had. So you had to do these things within 5 years prior to this occurring. So it was just mind blowing that the planning not only had to exist, but had to exist 5 years before the event. I mean, to me, I thought in your world, we're dealing with people in their 60s, 70s. This is really stuff in your 40s.
Yes, absolutely. In that, if anything is happening in a person's life that makes them worry that they may be one day diagnosed with a degenerative condition, especially like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, they need to talk to an attorney quick. Because yes, today it's a 5-year look back. Tomorrow it may be a 7-year look back.
And one of the things that really just it crawls my skin, but I know it's they're necessary evils to a degree. But the large majority of what estate planning is seems to exist around these financial planners. That's a whole other world of where they're selling you a bank product. And I always thought it was, when we talked throughout the years, you would tell me about these bank products that got sold to clients that they just simply came to a lawyer that would have saved them thousands of dollars. Just why do people use a bank product instead of a lawyer?
I don't know. What they need to do, their first stop should be a lawyer, because a lawyer is familiar with the rules and regulations that govern what a person can do or can't do with their assets to prepare to qualify for Medicaid for long-term care. See, there's a lot of things that a person can do with their assets that would not require purchasing a financial product, like, for example, prepaid funeral, prepaid burial. Both of those, as long as the prepaid funeral and prepaid burial is an irrevocable contract, that expense, that transfer is exempted.
So, one of the great stories that you told me was, and I don't want to get it wrong, was you had somebody come in and they'd seen one of these financial planners who's not an attorney, and they had, I don't know, I think it was $60,000, and they were going to spend $30,000 with this person to get $30,000 back in a way that the government couldn't touch it. And what you did was, for 1/6 of the cost, or 1/10 of what they had in the bank, you were able to allow them to buy a vehicle and put money towards stuff. It was a crazy story, and I don't want to take it from you. But it's a crazy depiction of how these people went to a financial planner who told them to spend $30,000 when they showed up at your doorstep, they spent $6,000 and saved all their money.
Oh yeah, they just bought a truck, because one automobile is an exempt asset that Medicaid will not count if you need long-term care. His mother didn't own a house, she didn't own a car, but she bought one, and it was and that took care of, and so she instantly qualified. And I said, there's things you can do other than buy financial products.
Now, the reason why I asked you to come on the podcast, though, because you came up with something about, you said, now, Keith, your criminal clients need to look into power of attorney and things like that. So that's sort of a different kind of crisis management right there, because, in the world of criminal defense, we have clients that unfortunately can spend significant amounts of time in jail, and if the case goes wrong, even in prison. And so talk to me about, number one, what is a power of attorney, and why is it significant to someone who may be in jail, may have a loved one in jail or a loved one in prison? How can your services help someone like that?
Well, a power of attorney is a document in which a person who's called the principal empowers another person called the agent or attorney in fact to act on their behalf in the event that they are physically or mentally unable to do it. Now, a power of attorney is perhaps the oldest type of document in history. There's the historians have found powers of attorneys from the days of Alexander the Great, because back in those days, when people were going off to battle, they would give a power of attorney to someone to take care of their affairs while they're away. And that's what it's for. And, people think that power of attorneys is something that you do. Another thing that you do when you're older. But that's not true at all. It's every unmarried adult needs a power of attorney. Because, like, for example, someone who's in college, mama and daddy could help them out if they had a problem when they were younger, but once they turned 18, no one's going to talk to mama and daddy without a power of attorney. You can think of a power of attorney like a jack in your car. You may not have a flat, but you're going to be thankful you have it. Someone's been holding a power of attorney on me ever since I got out of law school. But people who are facing criminal charges need a power of attorney more than most. Because, look, your clients are kind of they're one of two types.
Mm-hmm.
You've got one are persons who live ordinary lives.
Yep.
And due to an excited event, passion, or just some bad judgment.
Or a bad accusation.
Bad
Police work, maybe.
Have some bad luck.
Yes, have some bad luck.
And find themselves facing criminal charges. Then you have another type of person that you would find in a criminal courtroom. These people are not living ordinary lives. They're going through the world doing what they do, and their good luck ran out.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you have the potential of facing criminal consequences for your actions, you need to have a power of attorney. Because like if you're out on bail,
mm-hmm.
Bad things can happen.
Yep.
And having someone holding a power of attorney for you when you can't act for yourself can be the difference between saving everything and losing everything.
And that's something I hear really often is that, my clients, whenever they are in jail, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to lose that, I'm going to lose my house, I've lost my job, things like that, unless I can do something. And this is a situation where it sounds like where if a wife or a mother or something like that has a power of attorney on them, they can go to the bank and deal with things like that. Is there something that a power of attorney cannot do, or can you limit the power of attorney depending on what you want that person to have access to or not have access to?
Absolutely. And the power of attorney will not give the agent the authority to terminate life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a healthcare power of attorney or a living will. But it can be as broad or as narrowly drawn as you wish.
So I could even write a power of attorney necessary only to operate a single bank account.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good to know. What I want you to talk about, though, because you've talked about this, just with me and Devin, just in our conversations about your getting started in marketing and politics. What did that look like? Because it was your marketing and political career that actually led you to law school. Is that right?
Yes. I was halfway, almost halfway through my MBA when I made the very bad decision to lay out a semester, which I continue to lay out. And I knew Jerry Jones before he was DA. He was attorney in private practice down on South Grand. I knew him through Richard Fuel. And when he ran for DA and asked me to help him, over the years, Jerry had done legal favors for me for free that I couldn't afford to pay him. So I figured I owed the man. And I didn't know anything about law at that time. And so I helped Jerry in his campaign, and he won. And along that road, I learned about lawyers, what lawyers do, and I got interested in becoming a lawyer.
What was the most interesting part about learning the legal side of things? Like, no, I'm going to switch course. I'm going to switch course here from MBA to law school. Well, was there one thing that stuck out to you?
Litigation looked attractive.
Okay. And you're talking about the world of insurance defense and car wrecks and things like that when you say litigation, or just working cases in general over time.
I didn't have any area in mind. It just looked like, because when I was deciding, we're trying to decide whether or not I wanted to go to law school. Jerry sent me for a whole week. He sent me to the courthouse because I was still working for him.
Mm-hmm.
He sent me to the courthouse, and every day I was just to sit in a courtroom where they had court and just watched.
And was this criminal court, civil court, or you just looked up on what it was?
All of it.
Okay.
5 days. Whatever was open, I went in there. I watched everything. I watched divorces, custody rules. I watched criminal court, and then I watched a lot of stuff I didn't know what was going on. But
you sound like me when I go to civil court. So
it looked like something I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a child of the 70s. I graduated high school in 1981. The only thing that we knew about being a lawyer was that series, The Paper Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
So you're saying you were the living embodiment of that '70s show for West
No,
Monroe, Louisiana?
No.
So you're not gonna say whether you were the Eric Foreman or the Kelso type, huh?
No. It's just that, I mean, now it's easy to find a frame of reference for what being a lawyer is.
Mm-hmm.
And there just wasn't.
So you're sitting there, you had a surgery, and I know most people know you had a back surgery. So you're down a little while, of course, a fusion. And what in your mind says, I'm going to click on a Westlaw's book subscription to Elder Law?
I don't know.
I mean, you trying to tell me you have a claim against the pharmaceuticals for the OxyContin claim for us?
No. It goes back to what I learned as an assistant DA about what families have to deal with when things go wrong for someone that they love.
So it was just a progression along the scale.
Yeah, because it looked like something that I would find fulfilling to do down the road. So yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah, I remember when you told me you had a whole book subscription to the Elder Law. I said, well, I don't know them too well.
Yeah, I wanted to look to see how these people's lives could have been different.
Yeah, and once you explained it, it was just the understanding. You know, we talked about bank products and finance. Really, it was a world that I thought, hey, financial planners do this, and kind of figured out, to be honest, they do it really poorly. They do it by taking your money, and a lawyer does it by letting you keep everything. And at that point, I just thought, man, this is a game changer.
Yeah, I enjoy what I do, because you can, like, leaving a will. Leaving a valid will and a solid estate plan is a person's very last chance to be there for the people that they love at a time they can't be there for them, but they need them the most. Because again, the law may not take care of the ones you love like you want them taken care of. And so it's leaving a will, estate planning, all that. It's not about you. It's about the people you love.
You know, one of the things is I don't think you left the marketing career too far behind. I remember one day I was in the car, and we usually would talk in the morning. We still infrequently talk in the morning. And I called and you said, hey, what do you think about this? I want to run a billboard that shows somebody's pet getting taken away so I can do pet wills. And I thought, He may not have finished that MBA, but they should have gave the damn thing to him.
Is that one still waiting for bar approval? Or? So
Pets. Well, pets. That's something that people don't think about, but they should, because we all think that we're going to outlive our pet. We might, but we might not. And how I became aware of, let's call them estate dogs.
Mhm.
I became aware of that when I accidentally left my gate open and my 2 dogs ran off. And I recovered one in a week. I recovered the second one the following week.
Thank God.
Yeah. And I was, every afternoon, I'd go to the animal shelter to see if, because I was either going to find my dog or find my dog's body.
Mhm.
But I wasn't going to just abandon it.
Mhm.
Anyhow, it was the people that worked at the animal shelter told me about estate dogs.
Okay.
And I never thought about that. And they said, yeah, a lot of people pass away and they don't have family members around, or for whatever reason, persons would just either take the dogs to the animal shelter, or they'll just dump them on the side of the road. And they told me the problem that these dogs are commonly, it's they have a tough time at that shelter, because you got to, I mean, think about it from the dog's perspective.
Yeah, he's gone from living this cush life, sleeping on the couch and stuff.
Yeah, they're pack animals. They're not, we look at our dogs as family members, but they're not. But the dog looks at it as you're a member. He or she's a member of your pack. And one day everything's fine. The next day, somebody snatches it up, takes it to a place where now they're living on cold, dirty concrete, and the noise surrounding them with the constant smell of death. And the whole time they're in that situation, they're thinking about you. And so, and it's not, planning for your pets, it's not so much a problem with younger people, because younger people, you have wider social circles. You have your coworkers, you have your friends you socialize with, or that your family socialize with. So if something happens to you, someone's going to step up. But as you pass through life, your circles get smaller, because people move away, lives change, you retire, your circles get even smaller.
Look, I'm not going to joke. I laughed on that phone. I took that exit off St. Francis and thought, damn it, I'm going to be embarrassed. I got to get one of these things for Queenie.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And so, it's just something you never think of. And it kind of comes back to, at the DA's office, when we're at the district attorney's office, Brian was kind of the first shelf in the incubator for a baby attorney. He had to babysit a bunch of us and teach us how to try cases. But there's always this outside the box thinking. It was just it's kind of your mark on the world to me, is that you would take these things that are normal, ordinary, what seem to be things that you don't remember to do or take care of, or that you walk out of law school and think you know it, and you build this sound foundation on what is ordinarily a simple block, but it needs to be a sturdy, well-built block. Something like a pet wheel. I'd have never thought of a pet wheel. I'm thinking, heck, the dogs will be fine, but the first thing you ever buy grandma or grandpa when they're getting older, or your mom or dad when they're getting older, is you go buy them a pet friend. And now you got to leave that dog to where it's at. It's an ingenious thing, but it's a simple aspect of life that's often overlooked that you can shore up. And that's kind of your history with me, is that you would always shore up these little simple things that would be overstepped. One of which is that I probably shouldn't say some of the things I said to some of the attorneys in court. which gets me back to how I got to Brian's desk every Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, I enjoyed that, and thank you. But look, if you there's 3 ways you can plan for pets. Number one is the first one is the easiest and the simplest. It's a non-legal way. Work it out with your friend. You get a commitment from someone you trust, that if something happens to you, that they'll take care of your pet. But there's there could be a problem with that.
Well, I can see that. I think there's probably about 6 people that would fight over my pet right now. So
Exactly. That's the point.
And you know what the problem with his logic on that is? He thinks I'm one of those 6 people. So this is where we get to the next avenue.
well, Queenie is Minnie's best friend, so you can't blame me for that.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, because see, the
That dog likes concrete.
your dog.
I have concrete floors in my house, so
As much as we feel that our dog is a family member, it's not. It's property.
Yep.
And what if, let's say you don't have a will, it's an intestate. What if your family members don't like the person that you made that agreement with? They're not taking that dog. And that dog could end up somewhere you wouldn't want it to be. So there's the next thing you provide for your dog in your will. And it's real simple. It's a paragraph that says, I leave Queenie to Keith.
Yeah.
Or you can say, I leave Queenie to Keith along with X amount of dollars that he can use to care for her. Or you can include, I leave Queenie to Keith along and X amount of dollars along with her bedding, toys, veterinary supplies, veterinary records. Look, if you even think that your estate's going to be contested, you be as specific as possible with that. Now, the downside to that is it doesn't matter what you put in your will. You're going to give your animal to a person and give that person money. That person can spend it on that animal if they want or not. They could turn around and take that animal to the animal shelter and pocket that money. So then there's the third way, is you can create a pet trust. That I haven't done one. And you don't see that often.
would you like to?
Really?
Sure.
Here's what you do. It's a trust where you create the trust, and what you do is you would donate your dog to the trust, and the trust would own your dog, and you would be the caretaker of that dog or the caregiver until that dog dies. You would select a trustee that would manage that dog's money. In that trust, you would specify the care you want for your dog. And I mean, it's just, you lay it out. And then the third person that you would name in the trust doesn't really have a name. A lot of people call it the enforcer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a person whose duty it is to make sure that the caregiver is providing the care as the trust requires.
That they in fact haven't taken your pet to the animal shelter.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Or in Queenie's case, is getting allergy shots on a regular basis and
Correct.
their nails clipped.
And that would last until the money ran out or the pet died. And you would provide in that trust what would happen to the money.
Yeah, it's these simple things in life that we all walk and we don't think about that you put pen to, it solidifies it. It's interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
It's law is one of these weird things where it permeates everything in life, and we often only remember that it does during contested, controversial moments. When reality is that law permeates every aspect of life, And it's just it's interesting that your practice is built to that, and really looks forward to that. I'm 39. At 39, what should I be looking at?
Well, anyone with minor children must have a will.
Yeah.
Because if you can do two things with that will. Number one, you can name who's going to control the money that is left to your children. If you don't, the court's going to decide. And also, you can name who is to care for their minor children. Now, if like say if a husband dies, but the father dies, but the mother survives, the mother she's the natural tutor, and she would take custody and control and care for those children. But what if mother predeceased father, so that when father died, no one's name? It's the court would have to pick, and it may not be the person you would want.
Yeah. And
the same thing with the money. It's the court may pick someone to be the trustee over that child's money, and you might not want that person touching your child's money. So a parent with minor children need a will more than most.
So we'll bring it to a fun story. One of these Tuesday, Thursdays that I was sent over there to meet with Brian because I maybe improperly talked to a bail bondsman and told him where he could get help at when he wanted help on his not so unlawful offending grandson. I've sent over there to get from Brian courtroom decorum training, basically. And we ended up in a hearing. You remember this? We ended up in a hearing from a guy who was in jail, who is on misdemeanor weed charges. I think he had filed somewhere north of a dozen motions. Brian says, hey, we have to go over here. I'm going to show you how we handle somebody who's pro se in court and all this is going on. Remember what happened?
I don't.
We get in the middle of this hearing. Brian's told me all these things to say, like, don't say it that way, say it like this. Always have respect for the court. Never talk to the defendant, talk to the judge. We get over there. This guy starts just jabbering at the jaws at Brian. Judge Sharp, Carl Sharp, who's now retired, he looks at Brian and says, are you going to respond to him? So the guy yells something towards Brian. Brian responds to him, starts yelling at him.
And so this is courtroom decorum training.
Yeah, courtroom decorum. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden Brian storms out, and he sends me a text, says, can you bring me my bag? He said, and don't do anything I said. That's how my training went.
Not a proud moment of mine.
And I thought, all right. So it gets to that point, but there were a lot of court moments. There was another one where I had to get these transcripts at one time. I had a guy who had a bunch of previous convictions, and he was another guy who liked to self-represent himself. And I guess Brian had prosecuted on possession of crack cocaine. And at some point, the jail had not brought him to court. And Brian had offered him a plea offer. As I'm reading through the record, I read Judge Carl Sharp say, Mr. Harkins, are you now okay? Will you not hold it against him that the jail didn't transport him? Can he have his plea? And Brian saying, no, they didn't bring him. I'm not giving him a plea.
Oh, yeah, that was wrong.
And so finally, after about 5 minutes of talking him down, the judge is advocating for the defendant to get his plea deal. Brian says, okay, I'll do it.
Oh, I was wrong.
But those were fun nuggets along the career of doing things that, what in this career brings that kind of joy to you or excitement that you look for? Obviously you have to, you're a litigator. You look for excitement, joy.
Now I try not to litigate, and now I get my joy by helping people make their life better, because that's how someone feels when they leave my office after signing a will or a trust or a power of attorney or all three. and they leave out knowing that, because that's what I hear from them over and over again right after it's done. I feel a weight off of me. So that's where the joy is. It's, just trying to make the world a better place for being here.
What was your toughest transition from 24 years in a district attorney's office to a private practice?
Controlling my calendar. Because when you're an assistant district attorney, you're told where to go. And you don't have to even think about those things. It's just the docket drives everything. So you just do what you do. And that was the toughest transition.
What did you
Managing yourself.
Managing myself, yes.
Did you find any tools or anything that helped out with it?
I'm still searching.
I think we all are.
That's for sure. All right, Devin shared a fun story. And I don't know if the story that I want to share is as fun, but it's a lesson that I learned from you. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago even. But I remember I had a case, and the wrinkle in it was that it was my barber's daughter's case. And the daughter and her boyfriend had gotten arrested on something. And I came to you whenever you were still in ADA, and I was telling you all the reasons it was a bad case. And every time before court, every 3 months, I'd pop up in your office and I'd be like, hey, Brian, let me talk to you about so-and-so's case. Man, this is a really bad case for these reasons, really bad case for these reasons. And this went on for probably about a year at least. And then I finally said, Brian, this is my barber's daughter. You've got to help me out here. And it's a bad case because and then you called me up after I left and said, Keith, why didn't you just tell me that it was your barber's daughter? I would have done that I would have helped you out a whole lot sooner rather than telling me that it's a bad case. Because what you taught me there was basically, if you tell me I've got a bad case, I'm going to say, well, don't threaten me with a good time. Let's pony up and see who really does have a bad case.
I do. I remember that. And yes, look, I made a mistake in dealing with you because I got up in my pride.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I received you is that you were telling me that I could not evaluate a case. And that's why I was going to say, oh yeah, let's find out. But
and this is a time whenever we were friends. Like we were friends, but you still were like, what's Whiddon thinking? So
but when we started talking about the mitigating circumstances in this case, I saw clearly that the resolution you suggested was the right thing to do, and right for the state's interest in justice, and right for the complainant in that case.
And that's something that even whenever I was studying with you and learning stuff as a prosecutor, that was always something that I learned from you was just find out what's going on. Why is this person coming to you about this case? Figure it out, talk to them. And we employ that now in ticket cases. Frequently we'll get a ticket case. Keith and I do some ticket work together on traffic tickets. And I will say, hey, figure out why, the why question. Because the why is a lot easier than attacking everybody's witness. Is why do you need this help? Why do you need that? And the why is something that I think a lot of people lose. But it's imperative to your practice right now because it's elder law. Why are you doing this?
But I see what you're saying. I mean, because I get that. But what you were talking about, yeah, I mean the why. And like when you're in criminal cases, there's the police report. And what I learned is you take what the victim said, you take what the witnesses say, you take what the law enforcement says. Somewhere in the middle of that is where you're going to find the truth.
Yeah, and I think that's where why lives, is somewhere's in the middle.
Yes.
And if you can have somebody the first person who can supply the why that is reasonable, it's articulate, and succinct, generally wins.
Absolutely.
It's I've employed that theory in jury trials I've been successful with. Just provided them the facts were not great, but supplying the jurors with why made the facts digestible.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we all work towards. It sounds like that's what you work towards in state planning. The facts can be better digested when you have a why. Why are you doing this? What do you want to do with this? Why do you want to leave this here?
Absolutely.
Then we can get there with the facts and put the glue to the puzzle pieces.
Yes, because it takes a comprehensive understanding of the family dynamics, as well as the particular assets in the estate. Not necessarily. I'm not meaning the value of the assets, but just the nature of the assets. For example, a lot of people own property out of state, like some hunting property in Mississippi or Arkansas or Texas. Well, if that property's held in their name, when they die, their family's going to have to open 2 successions. It's going to cost them double. Because, if they died owning hunting property in Arkansas, a Louisiana court has no authority over Arkansas property. And when I get a client like that, I advise them to either create an LLC and own that property through an LLC, or a Louisiana corporation, or a trust.
Yeah. And
that way, there'll just be one succession. Or if it's in a trust, it won't be in a succession. And that's just one thing. It's another thing is that I talk with the clients about things that they need to do with particular assets, particularly digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of valuable property can be lost if you fail to plan. I had a case a while back. This person is an estimated $60,000 or $70,000 in cryptocurrency that just gone because no one could find his
keys.
Yes.
So no one found his 12 keys, and so it's $60,000, another $60,000 in Bitcoin that's lost literally forever.
Absolutely.
Because they're not making any more Bitcoin, whether or not the audience knows that or the listener knows that. Bitcoin is a finite thing, and so it's wow. Okay.
And then also it's things like if a person, some people invest in domain names.
Mm-hmm.
And just leaving your records in a manner that your executor can find them. And another thing, and it has more emotional value than monetary value when speaking of digital assets, are photos. Because when we were kids, when a grandparent would pass away, families would get these big boxes of photos and letters and all that kind of stuff and divide it up.
Well, even whenever my grandparents passed away in recent memory, both times we were around the dinner table and looking at old photos and shoeboxes that they had stuffed in closets and cabinets.
See, now your photos are in the cloud.
Yep.
They're in hard drives. They're in jump drives. And unless you plan, that is a lot of history that's lost, and it has a lot of emotional values to the people you leave behind. And now, see, again, that's an item that doesn't really go into a will, but I do talk with my clients about that and the steps they can take to make sure, or if they don't want somebody to find it, how they can do that. And let's see what it's.
I know what Keith's first text gonna be when you leave here.
Well,
and then there's all sorts of things. There's people have valuable collections. It could be coins, stamps, baseball cards, guns. Now, anytime someone's a collector, it's something that they care about and they're passionate about. And a person really needs to plan for those items. whether they, like for example, if it's knives, sometimes there's some very valuable knives that only someone that's knowledgeable about the knife business would know the true value. If I spoke to a client that was, like for example, in the knife business, I would have him name in his will someone like an appraiser that would help correctly value the assets and sell them, so his loved one, if they're going to be sold, so his loved ones get the maximum value for them. And then, but there's another thing too. This is things like that can set off estate fights.
Makes where everybody's fighting over grandpa's guns.
Yeah, and it's more intense if it was $1 million on the table, because again, there's a lot of if grandfather collected guns, that's something that he loved, and that was his passion, and people want, it's people who love him or loved him would want that to remember him. But there might be more than one that wants that. And so when I talk to a client that who is a collector, whether it has high potential financial value or even higher emotional value, we will work to make sure his will or trust, if he chooses to put in a trust, specifies who gets what, so there's no fighting, no confusion.
Well, I can tell you this much: it's clear it's your passion to do this stuff. It's like I said, it's a foundational aspect of life that law permeates through, that just many people disregard till it's too late. We heard 5-year look back. When I started 13 years ago, it was 3 years. Now it's 5. It's interesting. All right, I think as we end on everything, we end every session with the same question.
Yep.
We ask every person who comes here for the citizen effect. The citizen effect is simply the idea of leaving something better than you found it. In this career, what do you believe your citizen effect will be? How do you see it? How you found where you're at, how will you leave it better?
That question. Could you repeat that question?
So the citizen effect, the citizen effect is, and this is old prosecutor trick. He's trying to get me to be able to spit my long-winded question out again. And I enjoy the trial tactic that you taught me and Keith, but you taught it to us. Citizen effect is the idea of finding something and leaving it better than you found it. How did you find the field that you're in, and how are you going to leave it better? And I'll start you. I think you found a field in this area that not many people are into. It's proliferated by financial men, bank men, and individuals who really, they have an interest in doing this work, but their interest is in gaining a bulk amount of the money your clients seek to save, and then giving them a piece of that money and making them feel good.
Okay. How I found this.
And this is not about the Oxycontin that you were on whenever you ordered all the law books, by the way.
Thank you for breaking that down for me. I understand. How I found this was through my experience as an assistant DA, because I saw all these victims' families going through what they went through trying to deal with whatever tragedy their loved ones suffered. And it bothered me. I said that why don't they go talk to someone? And of course, there's plenty of attorneys that can help them, but there's not one that this is just all they do. And so that's what led me to want to do this. That's the need I saw. Was that.
I think that you hit it on the head. I think what you did was you saw a field that had a necessity, that people were doing ancillarily side work, but was largely populated by people who weren't lawyers. And so you swam to that area. I think the mark that you're leaving, and I can see it in the work you've done. I refer clients to Brian. Keith refers clients to Brian. Is that the mark that you're leaving is that these individuals are retaining more of their property, utilizing the law to save money rather than their pocketbook, which is spending tons of money to get a little bit of money back. I think the mark you're going to leave is that I believe this is the field as the baby boomers come through. There's going to be a just swelling field of clients. I think the mark you're going to leave is that you were one of the first people to swim out to this blue ocean and do this for people.
Yeah. Well, I think with that, Brian, if someone is interested in your service or interested in learning more about you, where can they find you?
My website's harkinslawgroup.com. My phone number at my office here is area code 318-388-3320. And my answering service is 318-348-1208.
They can find you at harkinslawgroup.com.
Yes, sir.
What about planbeforeyouDie.com? Is that still
That's a work in progress.
That's a work in progress. Okay.
I think if you go to planbeforeyouDie.com, it routes you to Harkins Law Group.
Yes.
So you can still type it in. You can still use it. Bar Association, we haven't put it on a billboard yet, so that's where it is. Brian, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Very, very grateful to call you one of my mentors. Very grateful that you came and spent an hour with us on this.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. This has been the Citizen Effect signing out. I'm Keith Whiddon.
I'm Devin Jones.
Thank you, Brian, for joining us, and we'll see you next Friday.
All right.